The following program contains graphic material, including offensive language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Science fiction, the great teacher, the great inspiration. It helps us see the endless possibilities of life. So let's be inspired together.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's on the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We are not sending out interceptors. We have taken them completely by surprise.
Hello everybody, it's the Commodore. Hope everybody's doing good today. Well, I wanted to talk about a few interesting things here. I hope everybody's in the mood for it. Having quite a rainy day here in Maine here with friggin' thunderstorms and all that. So I went down to BAM bookstore and finally picked up my my figure here from Back to the Future. Finally, because the price they were asking, $27.99 for this. I mean, come on. Who's gonna pay almost $30 for this figure? They had it marked down to $15, okay? So BAM Bookstore has got a sale going on in a lot of their toy section here. So I got my Marty McFly figure here, and I'm trying to get it so you can see it in the box here. Yeah. Anyway, comes with a lot of accessories. And while I was there, I figured, well, I can buy another one, so I bought Biff here. I got Biff, and the box is the sports almanac. Again, they wanted 27, and then they marked it down to 15, which means if they can afford to sell these things at $15, don't you think that's an admission that they were price gouging you in the first place with these toys? And then I got this here for $10, which was originally $21.99. So it's $22 toy, which is a small toy compared to the bigger ones that they used to make. And now it's marked down to $10. Now that's the price it should have been at. I would have even paid $15 for that, but no more than that. Okay, $10 is more reasonable, I think, for something as small as this is, because I got other ships in this collection here, and they're not very big because the figures are small. Okay, they're barely 2 inches tall, and so you know what I'm saying? Why spend so much money on that? So I just bided my time, and bingo, those things weren't moving. I knew they were going to sell. They were going to have to put them on sale because none of those things were moving out of that store. Like, they got a whole bunch of those McFarlane DC figures. They sell in the store, but they don't sell very fast, and that's because they charge a lot of money per figure with those things. Okay, and if it's a big figure like Swamp Thing here, you're looking at over 35, almost $40 for the figure. Okay, and they made this figure large because Swamp Thing is a big figure, and it's a big character. And so they made it scaled up to the other figures that go in the collection. But of course, when you scale it up, it costs more money to buy. So, but I bought it because it was you know, it was a rare one at the time that came out, and you know, it was expensive to buy online, so I figured, well, you know, you're probably not going to be able to get it cheap, you know, no matter where you get it. So I forked over the $40-something to get it. So, but I have him now. So, and it's a really nice looking figure. It's well sculpted and everything. Let me see. I'll show you here again. You know, it's got lots of detail. You know, I mean, look at the face here, and then the branches, because he's a plant. He's a tree, like. And because he draws his energy from the life of the swamp and everything, he can make himself as big as he wants, or as, you know, or any shape he wants. Okay, because he's like that. He's one with the swamp. You know, his power comes from there. You know, so it's a good figure. So yeah, but anyway. BAM bookstore, they have a sale going on for toys that have been sitting in there for quite a while, since last year. All right, and they haven't been moving. In fact, no store has really been moving any of these things that I just bought today. I mean, Target, they sell the same thing, and again, they're not moving, and they're not on sale there either. So that's what I mean. I mean, people like the figures, okay? They really do, but there's a limit to how much they're going to like a figure. Okay. And if they see that they want all this money for it, then, you know, they're going to say, I can't swing that, you know. So, you know, they need to bear in mind, when you got something like that and they want that kind of money for it, it's best probably not to fill your shelves in your store with these things, unless you can get them at a cheaper price. So, anyway, I've been sitting on doing this review here of not the season finale of Strange New Worlds, but the previous episode before that, about with the Gorns. And I wanted to talk about that because you know, it was I just couldn't really squeeze that in with all the other videos I was making this week. So I figured now was the time, because I still have more things I want to talk about on my other streaming channel here. But as far as okay, that episode, and I can't off the top of my head remember the name of it, but yeah, I think you guys watching know what I'm talking about. It was good action science fiction, but it was very distracting seeing how much they borrowed from Predator and Alien to reimagine the Gorn. Okay, and when they did that, I felt like, well, you know, the Gorn that you know, people my age, or you know, or a little bit younger remember, is the Gorn from TOS, right? Big, strong, slow, and you know, they hiss and all that stuff. I just think that, you know, when they come out with this kind of thing where they burst out of people's bodies and stuff, you know, after they lay embryos in a person, I thought, like, well, this doesn't feel like the Gorn to me. I mean, this feels like something different, something else, like, you know, some parasitical insect, you know, like what happened on Voyager when the ship was overrun with them flying viruses. You remember, when you shot them, they looked like cotton exploding, you know, like pillows. Okay, it was something like that, because remember how they came out of B'Elanna's neck and all that, you know, they go and they just kind of grow inside and keep growing, and then they come out. So, you know, I felt like when they did that episode, it wasn't so much like they were doing a homage to Alien. Okay, it was, you know, it was a pretty good balance of taking a familiar idea and kind of changing it around a little bit, so it didn't feel like you were watching you know, a parody of Alien or something, you know. But with this, what last week's episode of Strange New Worlds, it felt so much like they weren't just borrowing, but simply robbing ideas from Predator and Alien and injecting them into the story. And I felt like, you know, I couldn't really enjoy the episode because my mind would just keep flashing back to those movies, and I'm like, well, you know, this isn't right. I mean, you know, remember when they bitched when they had that episode on TNG where Data was Sherlock Holmes, and Geordi was Watson, and the people in England that basically owned the rights to all those stories had a fit, that they were doing this on TNG, and they didn't want them to do that anymore. Okay. Well, I felt like they did worse in that episode last week, where they didn't really draw a line of distinction. You know what I'm saying? That we're not doing an homage to Alien and Predator. I mean, we're doing exactly that. I mean, everything that the Gorn were doing was basically ripped off from one of the movies from either franchise of Alien or Predator. And I just felt like, when they tried doing movies of Alien versus Predator originally, a few years back, they didn't do very well in the theater for the most part. Because I don't think people were really that interested in seeing what was originally a comic book idea that sold a lot of comic books, but they didn't want to really see that translated onto the big screen. It just didn't make the kind of impact they hoped it would, and they tried to do a second one, and that was even worse than the first. So then they just quit doing it altogether. But for Star Trek to try to pick up that, that battered baton and do these things, it's like, well, why are you doing that? Because the audiences just really aren't there to really find that interesting. Okay, and it's already been beaten to death in so many sequel films of Predator and Alien. There's nothing new there. So why couldn't they have just come out with something original for the Gorn babies and stuff instead of doing what they did? I find that was really not. Obviously the writers of that episode had some fandom, or were fans of those franchises there. Clearly they were, but I don't think it was right for them to try to, take from that to make a Star Trek episode. This is the second time they got the Gorn off, because the first time they showed them, they were flying around in these crazy-looking ships that didn't look like anything that made any sense. Okay, everybody was like, scratching their head. It's more complex looking than even the Borg ships looked, and it didn't fit with what fans had imagined. I don't even think they really liked the TOS remasters where they actually put a Gorn ship in there and it looked like like a starfighter or something like that, from the last Starfighter. It kind of looked like that. And again, nobody really thought that would really fit the aesthetics of a Gorn, okay? Because, we grew up during the 80s where, when we was Star Trek fans during the 80s, we were playing the role-playing game, the Star Trek role-playing game, and in the book of ship designs for the Gorn, all the ships look like big, bulky, shuttlecraft-looking ships, that they look like they're made to just hammer into things, as they fly. Like if they're gonna damage you, they're gonna do suicide runs because their ships are so big and heavy. And they're slow, and they got brutal weapons. Okay, everything is to just pound things to rubble with the Gorn, and they use those ships in some of the Star Trek video games that they made for PC, over during the 90s, and it looks great, but for some reason they didn't want to draw from that. Instead, they decided to recreate it, from scratch, and I don't like what they've done with the Gorn. I don't like how they've interpreted it, but it seems to me like the Gorn are going to be the focus for a lot of bad guy episodes, and I think, well, if that's the case, if they're going to do that for Star Trek Strange New Worlds, they need to bear in mind that when Kirk and Spock encounter the Borg in that one episode in TOS, okay, they didn't really know much about the Gorn at all. Even the people on the planet that were attacked by them didn't know who the hell they were, okay? So how are you going to explain that? I figure, if they're having all these encounters with the Gorn, then by the time Kirk and Spock are running things on the ship, they should have some familiarity by then of what the Gorn, use for weapons and stuff like that. but it's like it's a whole brand new race, and nobody knows anything about it. And then during the episode, you know, McCoy and Spock are talking about, well, maybe they thought we were intruding on their space and simply protecting themselves. But the Gorn that we know in Strange New Worlds are people who are really invading other people's space, okay, and, you know, attacking everything, okay? They don't seem like people just worried about their own territories. So, like I said, I don't know, you know, how they're going to explain that, because, like I said, Kirk and Spock, you know, in that story, Arena, I think that's what the was, they just... they didn't have any, there's no reason to think that they ever encountered them before. But now we're encountering them all the time in Strange New Worlds. So that seems like they're really tap dancing around canon here big time. So I hope they come up with something to suggest otherwise. I mean, one possibility comes to mind that the ship that they encounter in TOS looks so different from the Gorn ships in Strange New Worlds. They probably figured that it didn't belong to the Gorn, that maybe it's some other race or something. I don't know, but it could be the Gorn made a brand new ship at that time, and something completely off the wall compared to what they were making in Strange New Worlds. They made something that looked more Star Trek, you know. By the time TOS comes around. So, you know, like I said, I don't know. I don't really know what to say about it, because it's just like I said, you know, it's making contradictions here. You know, that's one of the problems you're going to run into when you're doing prequel movies and prequel TV shows of famous programs, is that you're not going to get all the facts straight. Okay, some new writers coming in are not going to know about things, and instead of actually asking some questions, you know, getting a little bit of background before jumping into a story, they just go ahead and write it, you know, and the people that do all the artwork, the special effects and all that, they want to wow the audience with all kinds of things, and they don't want to borrow too much from what was already done, because then it wouldn't look, you know, good enough for people to watch. So they try to reinvent stuff, okay? Sort of like what they did with the Enterprise, the interior and exterior of the ship. Like I said, I don't like the way the Enterprise looks in Strange New Worlds. I don't like it at all, okay? But I'm putting up with it for the sake of having some good science fiction stories to be entertained with, because we haven't really been getting that from Star Trek. There's been better stuff on Star Wars to watch, really, than anything from there. But I think that, you know, I figured, well, we're probably never going to get exactly what we want ever again, okay? Too much time has passed, and all the people who worked on Star Trek before either retired or passed away, so those days are gone, okay? All the time there from TOS up to Enterprise, that's a whole era right there that's just gone now. So the new era began with Abrams's Star Trek to now. This is the second era of Star Trek, and all that stuff there is just what do you want to call it? Non-canon stuff. You know, alternate reality. You know, I don't know. Take your pick. But most of that, what you're seeing in the second era of Star Trek, is really not as great as the first era of Star Trek. So, but again, Strange New Worlds is probably the best that they've made so far in the second era. You know, which, you know, it wouldn't be too hard to make something better than what they've been making. Okay, so I'm not saying that to you know, make people think that, oh, they got something great there. It's not great, okay? Strange New Worlds is not great Star Trek, but it is better Star Trek than the other Star Trek shows they've been putting out on Paramount Plus, okay? It's a lot better than that garbage they've been making there. So I'm glad it's on, and it's good enough that I'm interested in watching it, okay? I haven't seen the season finale. It still kind of amazes me that today a season is considered 6 or 10 episodes. You know, I grew up watching TV where a season was like almost 24 or 25 episodes of a show. A whole season was like that, okay? And they had a hiatus during the Christmas period, and they would come back with more shows after, you know, after the holidays. And it would go up right until just before summer would start and the season would end. So they would start at the beginning of fall and they'd go right into the beginning of summer, and that would be considered a season. Now they start and end a show for a season within a season. Okay, a seasonal period. They just don't do the 25 episodes. I'm not sure why. Is it because of actors not wanting to work them kind of hours anymore, or is it something to do with budgeting that they can't? But then you figure all the other shows that they make out there who don't really need the budget like Star Trek does, again, they're doing 10 episodes a season. So I don't understand. I mean, I think Law and Order is probably the only TV series out there that I can think of that's doing, you know, a full season's worth of episodes like they usually do. They don't cut it down. At least I don't think they have. But you know, these new shows they make today, they're just very short, and I think that's probably one reason why they wanted to do serials with Discovery and Picard, is because they figure, well, 10 episodes, doesn't feel like a whole season's worth of shows, but in 10 episodes you could do a whole story in 10 episodes. But that doesn't work either, because 10 episodes is short, but it's not long enough, you know, or you know, to really make a good thing out of it, because you can only focus on certain things in a 10 episode period, and everything else gets thrown off to the side, and you get a half-assed TV series for a season, you know. So, like I said, Star Trek and serials, they don't really go together. They work better this way here, where they're doing with Strange New Worlds, even though it's only 10 episodes. You know, I don't know. Okay, let's go to commercial break. We'll be back.
Superman movie is brought to you by Canon, the world's leading camera manufacturer.
Quick, it's happy.
Canavision 8 camcorders.
Hey, I thought you were Superman, huh?
Hey, I am.
If it moves, shoot it with a cannon.
Trash bags! Trash bags! Trash bags! Trash bags! I want trash bags! I want them! I want them! I want them!
Little cinnamon gum freshens breath longer than Big Red.
So kiss a little longer, stay close a little longer, hold tight a little longer, longer with Big Red. That Big Red freshness lasts right through it. Your fresh breath goes on and on. While you chew it, say goodbye a little longer, make it last a little longer. Give your breath long-lasting freshness with Big Red.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. So, Star Trek comic book. I bought on my Kindle a Star Trek comic book called Star Trek The Next Generation Hive. Okay, and this isn't new. This was published in 2013. Yeah, way behind, huh? No, I mean, I buy these things, but I pick and choose the ones I want to read, okay? I don't just buy tons and tons of comic books because I've got, it's just too much, okay? And for the most part, they're never considered canon anyway, so it's just, when you buy the stuff to read, it's just entertainment is all it is. You can't really use it for anything in Star Trek. But, so this comic book was being sold on Kindle for 99 cents, so I figured, hey, here's the thing here. I don't know if you can see that. Star Trek Next Generation Hive. Obviously this takes place in the movie era, Enterprise E. Actually, the story is set after Voyager comes home. It's like a few months after they return, and this story starts. It's written by Brandon Braga, who's written many stories for Voyager and Star Trek in general, but and the artwork is done by Joe Coroni. I think that's how you say it. And the situation, the premise here of the story is that it starts off in the 29th century, and the entire galaxy has been assimilated by the Borg, and Picard was reassimilated, and now he's Locutus, and he's still alive after 500 years, obviously because he's all Borg, and the Borg just keeps him alive. And after assimilating the whole galaxy, Locutus feels like the Borg have been misled. They sacrificed so many Borg lives and ships and equipment and resources to assimilate the galaxy, and they're no closer to perfection than when they started. So he feels like the Queen has misled them, and in essence he wants to mount a coup to take over the Borg. And in order to accomplish that, he manages to recreate data to help him. And he has how do I say it? Because remember when Star Trek Nemesis ended, we had B4, and some of Data's memories were in B4. Okay. Apparently, when they when the Borg assimilated the galaxy, they also assimilated B4, and so the essence of Data was assimilated from B4 into the Borg collective, and therefore Picard or Locutus was able to extract that data and and then recreate a Borg data, okay, to help him overthrow the Queen. And so the story kind of keeps flipping back and forth from the 24th century to the 29th century, okay, what it's doing is it's trying to tell two stories, like how did the Federation end up getting all assimilated, and then in the aftermath, how was Locutus going to undo all of that, because now he wants to stop the point in which the Federation lost their fight with the Borg and were assimilated, so he wants to undo that whole thing. Okay, and so there's a point in the story where what happens in the beginning is the Queen arrives with all kinds of Borg ships that look like they've been in a hell of a fight, and she begs the Federation to help them fight this alien race that they tried to assimilate that lived in another dimension, sort of like species 8472. Okay, same situation, but this time the Borg are nearly defeated, or that's what she says. And so Picard feels like there may be something genuine in the speech, and so he leaves the fleet sort of open, and then all these ships from another dimension show up, and they come to find out it was a Borg trap laid out, and Starfleet fell for it, and these alien-looking ships apparently are just Borg-controlled vessels, and they take over Starfleet and Earth pretty easily, because they figured they can't just go and assimilate Earth outright. They tried that twice already and it didn't work. So they have to use subterfuge the third time in order to attempt that, and so they succeeded. That's where they have to go back and change things, so that way Starfleet doesn't fall for that. Okay, because after that everything just fell apart. Okay, and here's Borg data. Okay, I hate how this thing is just, see. So here he recreates data from Borg technology, and he sends him back in time to undo the mess that was made. The Borg Queen is easily overthrown, but the ace, I mean, what do I say? How do I put it? The problem is that 7 of 9 is back to being the Borg 7 of 9, and she's become the chief guard of the Queen, and so they kind of made her like into a mechanical spider 7 of 9 combo. That's how she ends up by the 29th century. Okay, and so they have to defeat that 7 of 9 of the future in order to stop what is going to come. Okay, so I mean, there's a lot here in the story, details and things like that. I mean, it's not a bad story. They have a character here called Lieutenant Archer, Kira Archer. I'm not sure if they were trying to connect her to Captain Archer of the Enterprise, like a descendant of the family, but her first name is Kira, so I'm thinking, well, maybe they just wanted to put, Kira, like Kira Nerys, and then give her Archer. But she's sort of like the Styles, Lieutenant Styles from TOS. She's sort of like Lieutenant Styles, where she doesn't trust the Borg at all. She doesn't trust 7 of 9, and I doubt she even trusts Picard. And so she's like on the Enterprise, and she's like really a pain in the ass. So Worf tries to they try to beam Worf over to a Borg ship, and he has a special set of Vulcan commandos that he brings with him, and all but Worf end up dead. And anyway, they show in the 24th century how 7 of 9 gets reassimilated and turned into a spider thing, and that's essentially what takes over the Enterprise E and basically starts the whole downfall of the Federation at that point. Okay, And once the Federation is no longer a threat, then the rest of the galaxy falls into place. You know, and I keep wondering, how seeing how we went through that whole thing, the Dominion War and stuff like that, do you really think that, the Borg could have won against all these different races? I mean, come on, they almost got their ass handed to them by species 8472, okay? They almost got themselves defeated. So are you trying to say that nothing else in the galaxy could possibly stop the Borg? I mean, the Federation kept them at a checkmate for quite a while, or a stalemate rather. So are you trying to say that the Borg can defeat anything in the galaxy? Which, like I said, doesn't make much sense to me, because it would seem that at some point in their quest to assimilate, they would run across some other species other than 8472 that would give them a run for their money and could probably defeat them. I mean, so people, fans in Star Trek like to establish everything is connected to the Borg, okay? Like V'ger connected to the Borg, and that the Doomsday Machine is somehow related to the Borg or something, because they're so awed by the Borg that they think that anything that the Enterprise encounters that's mechanical, like Nomad, encountered something that was related to the Borg and made them the way they are or something. But my take is that maybe there's more than one kind of species out there that bases their evolution on technology. Maybe the Borg aren't the only ones. Maybe there's other races out there. I mean, look at the Binars. They put those devices in their head to accumulate all kinds of data that their brain will process. They depend a lot on their technology, okay? And who says that there isn't a race of androids on a planet? I mean, we've already accounted that in TOS, right? Where we found Mud down there screwing around with all those robots that he was building there. And he made a whole bunch of female robots. I mean, how do we know we don't have more things like that? Does the Borg have to be the only game out there as far as technological evil goes? I mean, come on. There could be a lot. And and scientists in today's time have already speculated that if we encounter any kind of alien life from outer space, it's most likely going to come in the form of something mechanical, because the distances between the stars are so vast that the only way they could probably reach us is by some super powerful means of travel that would put them, a millennia or two ahead of us technologically speaking. And they would have done that already if there was anything out there that could do it. Okay, we would already been encountered by aliens. Okay, so they're thinking that maybe if there's any aliens out there, they're probably going to have to resort to the same kinds of things that we use, as sending out probes or automated ships with robot occupants running it. Because of the longevity that it would take to cross those distances. Which makes sense to me, but the galaxy is big, and it all depends on if they know we're here, okay? They got to know we're here in order for them to reach us. And so who knows if any of these satellites or these drones that we sent out into space over the decades have gotten close enough to actually, make a noise to be noticed, by life out there. We could still be waiting, or maybe somebody's already heard it and they're trying to figure out a way to contact us in return. I mean, we don't know where things are. That's the thing about space, is that because it is so big, it relies on extreme advancements in a society in order to explore it. Okay, you can't just throw somebody into a fucking capsule and launch them into space and say, oh, well, as soon as we cross the moon, we're going to find all kinds of life. No, it doesn't work that way. Okay, you might not find life for the rest of your life while you're sitting in that damn capsule. If you could live without food and air and water, you'd spend the rest of your natural life in that thing and never touch anything life-like, maybe a plant if you're lucky. But, nothing, anything, like I said, because by that time, if you did touch something out in space that was a life form and it was within that lifespan that you have, they already would know about us, and they would have already contacted us by now or been here, walking around among us, okay? So that's why, that's what I'm saying, is that maybe that's kind of the way it is. But anyway, with the story here, here's an art gallery here at the back of this at the story, which is what they do these days here. See, you got, I'm trying to, so it doesn't get so bright. Okay, on this side is the Borg Queen and Picard is Locutus, and on this side is Picard with 7 of 9 standing behind him. The gap is 500 years between the two, the future and the past coming together. Okay, and this is there's some more art here. It looks like Locutus kissing somebody in the middle of Times Square in New York City, as it may be in an attempt to assimilate. Kind of a weird picture. You got, in the background, you got people wearing old 1942 sailors uniforms. So I'm not sure what they were thinking when they made that, but here's a picture of Picard as Locutus. Whoops, I'm sorry. Picard as Locutus sitting in Lincoln's seat. And it says, "Resistance is futile. Your life as it has been is over. From this time forward, you will service us." And here's another picture of Picard and the Queen. Picard, Locutus rather, choking the Queen. Let's see. The artwork is good. Unfortunately, it's not showing up too well here on this thing, because maybe putting two screens together like that just screws up the quality, I guess. I don't know. And here's a picture that kind of looks like a little bit of Star Trek the Motion Picture and V'ger here, where you got 7, the Queen, and Picard in the middle, and what looks like his energy coming out of what looks like the V'ger core, where they find the V'ger probe, the Voyager probe. Kind of looks like that. So I'm not sure what the artist was trying to suggest in this picture, but it probably goes in line with what a lot of Star Trek fans have been saying over the years, is that all that was connected. So here's Mount Rushmore that's been redesigned with the Queen and a Borg and Locutus, and there's a cube floating around out there. I guess like the board would take the time to recarve, and then you got some black and whites here, pictures. I'm not sure that's going to show up too well, but it's just some pictures of cubes and spheres, and some of these are just uncolored pictures, what they used in the comic book. But here's what it says here. Whoops, I'm sorry. Let me back that up here. Okay. Here's how they describe this in the description. It says, "In the distant future, the entire galaxy has been completely assimilated by the Borg and its king, Locutus. The only hope for the future lies in the past, in the hands of Captain Picard and the crew of the Enterprise E, as Picard faces off against the Borg collective in one final terrifying and definitive encounter." So the story is remarkably similar in some way to what happened in Voyager with the species 8472. I mean, of course, you got to remember, Brandon Braga was one of the writers on the show, so maybe this is sort of his idea again, that he wrote this out in a comic book form. But because we've already seen that before, by the time 2013 rolls around, this story is, derivative of what we saw in that episode there with when they introduced 7 of 9 into the show. So there's nothing like really that wow about it, it's because I think it was more effective on the way they had done it for the TV show. Oh yeah, and of course, they brought Vash back into this story here, where they got Picard and Vash doing some excavating there together on some planet there they found some Vulcan things, and they did a pretty good drawing of Vash. Unfortunately, you can't really see it that good here, but the artistry is really good, though. I mean, I have to admit they did a pretty good job. It's a long way from Gold Key comic books here, where they where people, science officers were using test tubes and and shit like that. No, they actually do a pretty good job here with the artwork. Can't complain. A lot of times, I remember how they used to have DC Comics doing the Star Trek comic books, and they were sloppy as all merry hell when they did their stuff on that. I mean, it's funny. A friend I had talked to many times about those comic books and how they used to, screw it up. They couldn't get the scaling right. They had, these massive rooms on the ship that just disappeared in the distance, like a shuttle bay that seems to go on forever. And it's sort of like what we saw with the J.J. Abrams films, where the Enterprise is much larger on the inside than it is on the outside. I mean, it was like piss poor quality like that. So, they had decent stories, but the artwork couldn't match it. And I think we were very forgiving in the 80s of that, because a lot of us were buying the Star Trek comic books from DC at that time, but you didn't get many complaints in the readers' comment section in the very back of each comic book about the artwork. Okay, but as technology developed, they started using technology more to print the artwork instead of simply hand drawing it. They were actually using computers to digitalize the artwork, which is what they did here for the most part. And now the faces look more like the actors than they did, they actually got Riker is a hard face to capture, but they actually do a pretty good job here in this story capturing Riker's face. And I think what they've done is they probably got pictures of Riker in different positions and stuff, and they scanned it and they kind of laid it down into the print, as it were, because, like I said, all the faces are pretty damn close here to the actual actors, which is nice. Because it's, you're trying to bring this into the Star Trek universe, as it were. So, but yeah, like I said, I bought this for 99 cents, and it took me about 40 minutes to read. It's not very long. I thought it would be like maybe a two-parter or something like that, but no, they did the whole story in one little book here, and wasn't bad. Like I said, wasn't a surprise, it wasn't a shocker of a story, but it wasn't too bad. It was pretty good. All right, so that's it for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week, weekend, whatever. And I hope everybody takes the time to keep your ears open to any local COVID-19 news, because it's still with us, even though we don't want to be with it. And just subscribe and comment. Love to hear from you. And I will talk to you again at another time. So take care, everybody.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We are not sending out interceptors. We have taken them completely by surprise.
Because I think that the tradition of an engineer is a Scot. Because all the great motor ships and the steamships of the world were built in the Clyde.